Hello again and welcome to Painless Universal, a conversation with myself and Welsh. Today I'll be talking to Julia Bradbury about why her walking costs nothing. So many of us during this lockdown and pandemic found herself at home doing absolutely nothing. And she's telling us that if we go out on walks, it would actually be so beneficial, not only health-wise, but financially as well, because it absolutely costs nothing. She is an Irish-born English television presenter employed by the BBC and ITV in documentaries and consumer affairs. She co-presented the One programme, and one of the good things she's renowned and known for is outdoor walking. She's been doing this since she was the age of 7 with her father, and she's delegated her career into showing us beautiful and lovely destinations where we could go out and get the best sight as we walk and enjoy the view along the way. I can't wait to talk to her to understand how this passion came about, why is it so important that we get all of us out on our feet walking, especially when the lockdown eases, and how do we gain insight into ourselves that we enjoy what we do, because walking can also be boring for a lot of people, especially for kids. They need to be kept active, and how do we encourage our kids to do it while keeping them active along the way? Meet Julia as we have this wonderful conversation. Oh, hello everyone and welcome to Painless Universal, a conversation with myself and Welsh. I have the amazing Julia here with me. Gosh, I am so excited because I just started walking myself, and I must say I love every aspect of it. And through your television shows, you talk about different things about walking and why we need to get out there, get outdoor, the benefits of it. But before we get into it, Julia, thank you so much for joining me. How are you today?
Oh, and it's a pleasure really to talk to you. I'm very excited to be on your podcast. It's wonderful to talk to you. And I'm loving your background as well. Are they real books or is that wallpaper? Come on, tell me.
Come on, you could guess because they won't be a cat.
That's true. Yes. And yeah, what sort of cat is that? and yes, now you mention it, it's the same cat everywhere. Okay, now I've got it. Okay. Good wallpaper though.
Yeah, it's a wallpaper which I found, and I'm not quite sure how I found this, but it's one of an antique can. And I love it because it just gives me joy. Every time I look back at it or look at it through my screen, it makes me so happy. So
and who was to know that it would become such an important part of your work life as well this year, now that everything we do on life is in Zoom with video conferencing?
It's so funny, the world we live in. Tell me, where are you joining me from today?
So I'm joining you from central London today, which is my home. I've got 3 children who are in school in central London, which is why I live in London. Most people are surprised when I say that because I'm very well known for my love and passion for the outdoors, as you said. It's something I would like to change, but I'm very lucky because of my work. I get to go to the most incredible places. So I get my outdoor fix on a regular basis through my work. But I am just getting to that stage now where I'm with the kids. I'm like, what am I going to do with them?
Yeah,
but we're lucky. We have access to a very big garden here. They don't lead a typical London life. They are outside every single day, getting dirty, playing in mud. We go to the parks, and we've got lots of animal experiments going on in the garden as we speak. So they have a pretty good outdoor life even in central London.
Yeah, because that was what I was going to ask. I was like, how do they get outdoor in London? Because I know my kids they go to school in central London as well. And I know it can be limited outdoor space, but at the same time, if you know London, you know how to utilize the spaces in London and just really get the kids active and outdoor. Before we dig in, how could you tell us a little bit about who Julia is? Because I mean, your background is really amazing. Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Right. So I've been a television presenter for the last 25 years, and I've been very, very blessed, very lucky with my career because it has taken me all over the world. One of my first big jobs, strangely, was in Los Angeles, in Hollywood. I was the Hollywood correspondent for The Breakfast Show over here for GMB, and I was moved out when I was 22 years of age, and I went to live on Sunset and La Cienega. and I got to interview the likes of John Travolta and Tom Hanks and Arnie Schwarzenegger, and I was at premieres every week doing all of that red carpet stuff, which obviously in my early 20s was a phenomenal career and a very, very interesting place to be. But I'd always had an eye on the future, and I knew that this wasn't what I wanted to do forever. And I also suspected that it wasn't something I could do forever as well. I felt that it was a younger person's game. So I enjoyed it while I was doing it. But I eventually moved back to the UK because I did miss my family very much. I'm born to a Welsh Greek mother and a Derbyshire father, and I had a very stable, lovely, comfortable upbringing, which gave me a lot of confidence and allowed me to pursue my career in television. And from Hollywood, I then have ended up hosting in the UK a lot of landmark shows, so well-known shows in the UK, including a program called Watchdog, which was a consumer affairs program where we fight on behalf of the consumers for consumer rights, looking into things like labeling and companies misbehaving, and serious issues about insurance companies perhaps not paying out on life insurance policies, all sorts of human justice stories which really fire me up. And all along my television career, I've worked with a lot of charities. I work with homeless charities, I work with mental health charities, I work with cancer charities, and I really do believe in using my platform for good and being able to spread awareness of certain issues as well. So Watchdog was an important landmark show for me, and then I started accidentally doing these fringe shows on BBC Four, which is not a major channel in the UK. It's more of sort of an arty side, and they were walking shows. I was following in the footsteps of a Lake District walker called Alfred Wainwright, and I wanted to do these when the commissioner asked me if I was interested. I said yes, because my dad has taken me walking since I was a little girl. Since I was about 6, I remember walking with my dad, who is a passionate outdoor advocate. And I went to school in Sheffield in the north of England, and we lived sort of 10 minutes away from glorious hills and great big outdoor landscapes. And every weekend, that's what I would do with my dad. And after school, if we had a spare 2 hours, we would head out to the peaks and to the moors. And he was very engaging, and he made it exciting. And he planted a seed in me, which was this seed of wonder for the natural world. And I'm not saying I stayed monogamous with this relationship throughout my entire life, because there were certainly times when I moved to London where going for walks and being in the outdoors was not my number one priority, and I had a really good time, and I was again working quite hard, and there was quite a lot of burning the candle at both ends going on, and nature didn't necessarily have its place in my heart. But it was always there. It was always inside me. And when I started doing these walking series, which were in my 30s, I was presenting this program Watchdog at the same time. So it was very different. It was a very different thing for me to do. And I've always liked to mix it up in my career, do the unexpected, explore unknown territories, and don't get pigeonholed into one thing. So I was doing this serious Watchdog studio program, unearthing stories. And then I had this more light-hearted, refreshing series where I was walking and exploring the outdoor landscapes that I had loved as a child, and I was slightly pioneering the way, because there weren't many women in the outdoor space then. We're going back a longer time, so I was also doing something that not a lot of women had done. This is a space known to be occupied by male presenters historically. So again, I liked the fact that I was doing that. And the reaction to those initial walks on BBC Four, which was a tiny show, a tiny platform, was huge. People just fell in love with these walks. They loved the story of Alfred Wainwright, but they loved me following in his footsteps. They liked my passion, the fact that I was an amateur engaging in these natural surroundings and looking at them with a sense of awe. And I think they really felt my excitement for what I was doing. And that just led to a whole new direction in my career. And then I ended up, I was asked to move a big show called Countryfile, which was a daytime show on the BBC. And it had been running on Sunday mornings for farmers, because it's an agricultural show essentially. And the BBC wanted to move it to a Sunday night show, because they thought that a lot of the topics the topics about the outdoors, climate change, agriculture, the beauty of your landscapes. They felt that those topics were right for a bigger audience. And it turned out that they were absolutely right. I moved the show with my friend Matt Baker. We headed the show into its new primetime Sunday night position, and it exploded. I think we got 7 or 8 million viewers in the first week. It peaked at 12 or 13 million viewers. It became this huge juggernaut of a show, massively successful. And Matt and I were very proud to be involved. He's a farmer, so he was there for good reason. I was the sort of the passionate nature lover. And he and I got on really well, and we still do. He's a best friend and godfather to my kids. So we gelled, and I think the combination of our chemistry and the rest of the team and these beautiful stories really engaged. And that really moved my career into a different place. And since then, I have co-developed my own walking series all alongside doing Countryfile, which I no longer present, but it still runs on and is very, very successful. And now the walks and outdoor programming has become for me a staple of my career. And my current series that's running in the United Kingdom is called Cornwall and Devon Walks. I co-developed it with a production company called 24, who are a blue chip production company. And we made it for ITV. It's running on ITV now, and it's hugely successful again. And we're very, very grateful. And what I've been able to do with this series is I've been able to drop in, the more that I've traveled around the world and around the country, I have learnt so much about our connection to nature and how important it is to us and to our well-being, our physical and our mental well-being. So what I've been able to do with this series is, in every episode, although they're beautiful walks, and essentially that's the narrative, I go from one place to another and I interview lovely people in beautiful locations along the way about their local history and the stories that they have as the locals to that area. But what I've managed to weave into this entire series, which is an 8-part series, is the importance of us, you and me, connecting to nature and getting outside. So I talk about my connection with nature and how my dad was the person who got me involved in nature. And it's something that, even though, as I said earlier, I didn't stick with it throughout my whole life, I've come full circle. I'm back to it. I understand it. I embrace it. And now, through a series of interviews with experts around the world, I've been with Indonesian tribes, I've been with indigenous tribes in Australia, I've traveled through Africa. I have learned about indigenous people's connection with the land, with land use, and how we need all to understand it. Even though we now are living in urban environments. In the United Kingdom, 50% of us live in urban environments, 40 or 50%. More, 80%. Around the world, that statistic is 40 or 50%. We are migrating to urban environments as a population around the world. So if we're going to do that, and we are doing that because that's where the jobs and the work is, how do we retain this connection to nature, which we so desperately need? And I'll happily talk to you about why we need it.
I'm so glad you really went into it, because I wanted to understand what was the linkage. Why did you have such love? Because I watched some of your episodes and I've seen so many of them, and yet I see the detail and the passion when you're doing this. You just love it. You love the outdoors, and you're so when you're on television watching yourself, I'm thinking to myself, wow, I wish I could go here. I wish I could go explore this, because you really bring out this scenario of the whole place. But going back to your father, you said your father was the link to you having this passion, to bringing out that joy of walking again and enjoying it, seeing and viewing things. Could you remember exactly what was that your father did that brought out that light into you?
Well, I'm being a little bit unfair to my mum here, who's a Greek. My mum is Greek, so I'm half Greek. So Derbyshire dad and Greek mother. And my mother also had a role to play in this, because I grew up in a small village in a tiny county called Rutland, with this idyllic childhood. I went to the local primary school. And what I would do with my mum from a very young age, before I went walking with my dad, is I would spend hours with her in the garden, pottering around. She would get me to plant things, and we had 2 apple trees, which we still get apples from this day, and we make apple pie from. And we would harvest the apples, and we would store them away in newspaper and put them in the garage. And I would help her tend her roses. And I would get my hands dirty, and we'd chop the grass together. And I remember scything a field with her. We had to get rid of all this foliage, and she gave me this big scythe. And I remember chopping down with her. We cleared this little paddock. So those were also key moments. They were the key bits that also cemented this outdoor thing in my world. And then that was compounded by the walking in bigger landscapes with my dad. We walked, I remember the first time we were walking in and around an area called Buxton, which is in Derbyshire, he was born in Buxton. And these big moorlands above us, they're cliffs, they're big uplifts in the landscape, and we'd look up at these together. And I was holding his hand. He's 6'4", and I was tiny, and I had my little hand in his big hand, and so I'd be looking up at him, and I thought he was a giant. And then I'd look up at these enormous landscapes, and it's been proven that when we are in nature, we feel humbled. And we also feel more grateful. We feel gratitude. And that's because there is an internal recognition inside us, because we have evolved in nature as human beings, that what we are looking at is bigger than us. It's grander than us. It's moving in ways that are more complicated than humans can move. And that in turn makes us feel grateful. And it creates oxytocin inside our bodies. Oxytocin is the love hormone that we all have. You feel oxytocin when you tell someone that you love them. You feel oxytocin when you hug your lover, your mum and dad, your children, your friends. Your oxytocin levels increase. Your oxytocin levels increase when you're in nature as well. And there are other things that increase when you're in nature. Our body we have natural killer cells which help us ward off things like cancer. And our NK cells, when we look at nature, when we're immersed in nature, they increase by 50 or 60%. When you stand next to a tree, the same thing happens. And those effects have a residual impact on you. It doesn't just last for the moment that you're there. If you forest bathe, which is what they do in Japan, if you spend 2 or 3 hours walking through a forest, taking in these things called fractal patterns, which are the patterns of nature, which we all understand at an evolutionary level. That's why you feel calm when you're in nature. You look up at trees, you look at the clouds, you look at raindrops, you look at the shape of the repetitive shape of snowflakes. All of those things are fractals, and we understand them because we have evolved to understand them, and they make us feel calm. And the calmness boosts our immune system, and that boost to our immune system helps us alleviate our pain in a way, and helps us connect to ourselves inside. And those who forest bathe regularly in Japan, that residual impact of goodness, that well-being feeling, that lasts for weeks and weeks afterwards. So it's not just something that makes you feel good in the moment, it's something that has an impact on your life for weeks. And then you go again and you boost what you're doing.
I agree.
And that's what you have found, Anne. You know, what has happened during the pandemic is a lot of people, we have been forced to do what I do on a regular basis. We have been forced to go outside.
Absolutely.
It's our only connection. We can't go to the gym. We can't get on our bike. We can't go and do boxercise. We can't do yoga. We can't do our Zumba classes. So we have been forced, and I am so grateful for that. And I hope it's something that stays with humans. I hope we realize that sometimes, yes, it's great exercising and going to the gym, but mix it up. For the 4 times that you go to the gym, try and exercise outdoors twice a week, because the green exercise is good for you on a different level. It's doing different things for you. And it is something that you should force yourself and push yourself to do. And you were talking about your children and getting your kids out there.
Yes,
that's why it is so important that you get young people, you get kids out there, because they become me.
So how do you engage them? how do you engage them? Because normally when you go for long walks, it's okay if you go for a shorter walk. But how do you think on, this is your territory? How do you engage kids
So
on walks?
I think what I say is don't be frightened of technology.
Oh,
Kids are into their tech. We're not going to change that now. Look at us. We are communicating with technology. It can be beautiful. It's not
yeah,
all bad.
yeah.
There are downsides, but there are real positives. So there are lots of apps that will help your kids engage with the outdoors. You can do
Oh,
treasure hunts. You can do things called geocaching, which is where you go in search of little boxes of treasure that have been left behind by someone else.
oh,
There are geocaching routes that you can follow. So you sit your kid down and you go, we're going on a treasure hunt today. You're going to find, we're going, look, this is where we're going. Show them the map. Let them map read, not just all on apps either, not just the GP and sat nav. Let them learn to read a map. That's interesting. How do you read a map? The numbers. What do the numbers mean at the side? What's north? What's south? Engage them with that. Um, it's about camping is another great way. I'm the president of the Camping and Caravanning Club in the United Kingdom, and I'm president of the Camping and Caravanning Club not because I love camping all the time, but because it is a holiday that I take my kids on once or twice a year because they love it. You're in this completely new world. You're not in a hotel. You don't flick a switch and the light comes on. Well, you can do if you're in a posh caravan. But you have to think differently. Get them to think differently about what you're doing, because that is how they learn to problem solve in a different way. That is why they say get kids to play outside, because if you watch them playing outside, they play differently. They interact with each other differently. Their cognitive workings are happening in a different way because they have to problem solve in a different way. And it's been proven that when you get your workforce, when you get staff who work for you talk to companies about this. When you get them to step away from the screen, step away from the desk, and go outside, even for 5 minutes, you improve their productivity. You improve their creative thinking. You improve their ability to communicate with each other.
That is so true.
And I work with a psychotherapist, and we're working on a project together called Jonathan Hoban, and he is a walking, talking therapist. He's a psychotherapist. When you go to him with your problem, he doesn't sit in an office. He takes you outside and you walk and talk, because again, walking makes you think in a different way, and you communicate with each other in a different way when you're walking. Have you ever needed to talk about a big issue at home or with your children? How is school going for them? How is lockdown treating them? How is their mental health? How are they getting on? Go for a walk and ask them those questions, and they will talk to you in a different way, in a freer way. And they're not looking at you, they're not looking at you, oh, mum, I'm embarrassed. Just ask them while you're standing in the park or looking at a tree or standing in a beautiful landscape. So how's it going at school? How's your friend? And they'll be more relaxed when they talk to you
No,
about that.
absolutely, Julia. Because you know what, when you were just saying that, it just brought memories to my daughter. She's 3, and she learned her colors by walking. She would see cars, and she said, "Mommy, red car, black car," and that was how she learns. Because
Yeah.
when she's there, she's free. She's a different person. She's not that clingy girl. She's that free little girl who wants to explore the world, and she's going on to the little ants, because this was also in summer. She would see ants on the road and say, what are these things made with, these tiny things? So I totally agree with that, because it makes such a huge difference when you involve yourself, and mentally and health-wise. Can you tell us some of the health benefits that are associated with walking? Because you've been doing it for such a long time.
Okay, so walking itself, the physical act of walking, is good for you in every way. From a cardiovascular point of view, it's getting your blood pumping. And when I'm saying walking, I want you to walk. I don't want you to saunter. I want you to move at pace. I want you to move your arms. I want you to hold your tummy in. I want you to hold your bum and your glutes. And I want you to really walk. And the other thing I'd like you to do is not to put your headphones in. I want you to take in what's going around. Take in what's going on around you. Listen to the sounds, especially if you're in your park or if you're in a beautiful place. The birds, the trees, the wind, the sounds in the distance. All of those things are good for relaxing the brain. There's something called soft fascination. Soft fascination is when you don't have to be engaged in thought to fulfill the activity. So busy cities make us busy. You have to think about crossing the road because you might get run over. You have to think about the doorbell going because you're waiting for something to be delivered. You have to wait for that message to come through,
Yes.
or it's pinging because you haven't turned off your function to turn it off. But do turn it off. You know, our urban busy lives make us on alert all the time. We are waiting for something to happen. We have to react. We have to save ourselves. We have to connect. We have to engage.
Yes.
What you do when you're in nature, what you do when you're in the park is the complete opposite of that. You are engaging in something called soft fascination. It is the moment when your brain can just switch off. You're not going to get run over. You're not waiting for your phone. You're not listening to an iPod, whatever it is. You are just being. And that is in itself a form of meditation. I'm not a great meditator, and meditation is an art, and I've spoken to lots of
There you go. After all, you don't need it.
yeah, Buddhist monks. I've interviewed them all about how do you do it, and it's fascinating, it's great. But actually my meditation is taking the earphones out and watching what is going on around me and listening and just taking a moment to engage in this soft fascination, to let what's happening be. That is meditation. That is mentally doing you good. It's mentally beneficial. So exercise, I don't know why we feel that when it comes to being healthy, it has to all be about exercise. It's one thing. When you say she's healthy, what that means is she looks fit or he looks fit. They're healthy. Well, actually, health, now that we know, as we're all in lockdown, we now know that health is 360 degrees of health. It's your mental health, it's your physical health, it's your internal health. It's what you eat, it's how you move, it's what you do with your brain. It's those three things, and we have a duty to look after all of those bits of ourselves, and that's what spending time outside can do. They reckon that if you walk for 3 or 4 times a week for 30 minutes, if you can do that for your life every week, you will add 7 years to your life.
Yeah.
You're getting your lymph system to move. So your lymph system stimulates your immune system. Your immune system helps you fight off disease. So, that's another good reason. You're also exercising your intestine. Your intestine is a muscle. Your intestine that's filtering all your food through your body, that's pushing it all around, that's a muscle. That needs to be exercised as well. So breathing properly while you're walking, that does it. So all of these...
We think about all this now.
Yeah, and that is what I just want people to do, is I just want them to think about all of these small things. People go, I haven't got time, I don't go to the gym, I haven't got time to go to the gym. If you haven't got time to look after yourself, you haven't got time to live. Because
that's true. I like that.
You can't live if you can't look after yourself. You can't look after your children or your elderly parents or your partner if you can't look after yourself.
That's true.
If you can't look after all of those things, you need to, that is such an important part of our mental health. Caring for yourself gives you an ability to care for other things.
I love that because, and as someone with like myself who's got a chronic illness, I think I started walking and that just changed my life. Everyone comes up to me saying, how comes you haven't been sick? How comes? And I know so many people with your same kind of chronic illness, sickle cell anemia, and they're always in hospital. What's happening? I said, I think I was sitting a lot because I thought I needed to sit, but I didn't realize it's a blood disorder and the heart needed to circle and you needed to get that pumping. And when I started doing that, and I did all kinds of walks, slow walk, fast walk, then slow walk. And I noticed a different kind of me, a new kind of me, because my heart was pumping more and forcing the bad blood to get out. I don't know if you've noticed that with anybody you've talked to.
I've got two very interesting stories, actually. One, a lady called Louise, who I met recently on my new series in Dartmoor. Dartmoor's a beautiful place that people should visit. It's in Devon and it's stunning. And I interviewed this lady, Louise, and Louise has fibromyalgia. And she was very overweight and she was on opioids as well to help with the pain management. And it was decided that the best thing to do would be for her to try and come off the opioids because they were actually making her more ill.
Yes.
Now, I've had a little bit of kickback on social media about this because I posted this interview with Louise, and some people said, I can't get off my opioids, I need them, and you're shaming me in a way, saying that it's a bad thing. And I absolutely am not. Medication, of course, you're being advised by your GP. I am not saying in any way that you need to come off all medication and that walking is going to save everybody's life. That's not what I'm saying. But this is Louise's story, and this was true to her. She did need to come off the opioids because they were actually making her more sedentary. She couldn't eat very well. She wasn't moving. She said to me that the furthest she moved was from her armchair to the toilet, to the loo. So
I was in that same position as well. I was just moving from my arm. I had a disability badge because I would not walk. Literally, I couldn't walk. I just couldn't do anything. And that's why I'm so glad you're sharing that story, because this is me as well.
That was you. So
yeah,
there we go. So
I was on morphine. I was on paracetamol. I was on ibuprofen. You name it, I was on it.
Okay.
So I could really testify to that, and so I understand. To keep sharing this story, because
she went into hospital. She slowly was taken off her medication in a controlled medical environment. And then one day her doctor said to her, consultant said to her, I want you to walk around the ward. I want you to get out of the bed and I want you to walk. And she was like, why? And he said, because you will fire off your body's natural endorphins, which will help you with the pain relief.
I shouted at my daughter when I heard that. I said,
the body has its own way of helping you deal with pain. When people are in major car accidents and in bike accidents, and I've been there in the ward, I've made documentaries about that. They've got their leg is falling off, but they've got this big gash. You know, they've got this huge wound. Women, childbirth. I've been through childbirth 3 times. Why do we not feel the pain? You know, there's a moment. I mean, obviously we do, but there's a moment when you don't. People in accidents, they say they can't remember. They're in pain afterwards. They have this, you know, their body is bruised and sore and everything. But that moment, for a lot of people, they can't feel the pain because the body surges with adrenaline. The chemicals kick in. The endorphins kick in. The body's going, whoa, hang on a minute. What's going on? We need to shut everything down. We need to protect this bit of the body. We need to protect the brain. You know, it starts to do that naturally. Well, that's what happens with painkillers as well. You can reduce your pain naturally in some instances, as you did, as Louise did, through movement. She did it with walking. Well, she started walking around the ward and she has not stopped walking. I interviewed her on Dartmoor. She walks every day of her life. She's off the painkillers. She manages the pain through walking. She's like me now, talking about nature and green spaces and how she needs it every day. You know, she's addicted to nature. That's what I say. I'm addicted to nature. That's what helps her manage the pain and live a almost pain-free, much, much healthier, happier life, walking every single day. She has lost in body weight. She looked at me and she went, I've lost you in weight. She's lost, I'm 9.5 stone. She's lost 8.5 stone. So 60 odd kilos, more than that, 65 kilograms, I think it is. She's lost that in weight. She started walking outside on a wheelie walker. That was how she first hit the hills, in a wheelie walker. And now, you know, you'll see on my social media feeds, you will see on Twitter and on Instagram, she's walking on her own, baby. She is up there walking, and that was her incredible story. So very much like yours, walking saved her and has given her a life back. She was going to die fat in a chair. You know, that she would have just stopped breathing one day. That would have been her death. I interviewed another man who interviewed me, he's a radio DJ called, he's an interviewer called Mike Parry. And he was on a hospital bed waiting for a heart transplant. He couldn't get the transplant. There was he was going to get it and then it didn't work. And then he was in this hospital bed and he was lying on the bed and he thought, I'm going to die here. And he got out of his bed and he went home and he started writing thank you letters to all the people who'd written to him saying, get well, get well. And then he decided to walk to his post box, which was 200 meters outside his front door. He decided to walk to the post box to deliver the thank you letters. And that was the furthest he'd walked in years. And that's how he started walking, delivering these letters. Every day he would deliver another letter. Every day he delivered another letter. And now he's walking miles and miles every day. He's never had the heart transplant. He's still alive. He's still here.
Oh my.
I mean, and those two stories about walking, if they can't inspire you, then I don't know what can. I would urge.
I really don't know.
And again, I'm not saying that this is.
No,
I'm not saying
not the ultimate, but
it's not the ultimate. But if you haven't tried it yet, and you've tried lots of other things, why not try it? Because what's the worst that can happen?
It is totally amazing. Before we get to the final question, now we're getting to the final question. I really want to, before I let you go,
yes,
can you tell me some of the best scenarios you've seen in the United Kingdom? Because we have 4 countries. We have England, we have Ireland, Northern Ireland, we have Wales, and there's one more. Scotland.
England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales.
Yes, a lot of people don't know this, you know that. So you've been around. Tell me.
So what I would say to people, and certainly to our international audience here, we have the most incredible landscapes here in the United Kingdom, because we're a small island, but because of the volcanic eruptions millions of years ago and how we broke away from the European continent, we've got an interesting landscape. Geographically, we are fascinating. Yeah. So you've got the Highlands of Scotland, the Munros. I would recommend going to Scotland. I would recommend the bonny banks of Loch Lomond. I would recommend the West Highland Way in Scotland. I would also recommend that you move a little bit further down and you come to the Lake District. The Lake District
amazing.
Is one of the most beautiful places on earth. The famous poet Wordsworth wrote Daffodils is written about the Lake District. Virginia Woolf loved the Lake District. Artists and painters have adored and been inspired by the Lake Districts for generations. So the Lake District is a place that you need to visit. The South Downs, down in the south. The South Downs are rolling, beautiful, very different, a very soft kind of landscape that is also beautiful to explore and very, very lovely. Now, I was born in Dublin, so I'm going to suggest that you go over to Ireland, that you go to the Mountains of Mourne, that you explore the Wicklow Way. Where have I missed out? Devon and Cornwall, of course. The Lizard Peninsula is... when you're looking at the map of England, there's a little spiky bit at the bottom that looks a bit like the boot of Ireland. It's like a little toe sticking right out. That is the Lizard Peninsula in Cornwall. You will find 15 different species of plant in the Lizard Peninsula that you can't find anywhere else in the world. It's incredible. And because it's surrounded by the coast, it has its own microclimate, and you'll see beautiful fauna and flora that will just blow your mind. Norfolk, the Norfolk Broads, everyone says it's flat and boring. The beaches of Norfolk are stunning. You'll see pink-footed geese and boobies. You'll see seals. You'll see spectacular wildlife.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Those are just a few places. So
I just have to ask, what about London?
Now, the great thing actually about the city of London and Birmingham and Liverpool is there are lots of sanctuaries. London is a pretty green city. I think we're 4th on the list. Bristol is number 1 as the green cities in the UK, and London is number 4. Go to Hyde Park, go to Holland Park, do the canals, walk along the canals. Also very, very beautiful. It's worth searching out in your own towns and cities, and especially if we're talking to the world here, find those green spaces, find the parks, find the sanctuaries, find the canals, find the rivers, find the bridges, because they're really important. And I want cities to become greener. If we're all going to move en masse to cities, we need more parks, we need green roofs, we need mini forests, we need more water features. We need those to help with climate change and for our own mental health. If you go to the outdoorguide.co.uk, all of my television walks are on that website, and you will see walks from all around the country, and that's a free resource where you can download the route for free. So when you come and visit, download the route at the outdoorguide.co.uk, and you can go and visit all of those places. And you can follow me on The Real Julia Bradbury on Instagram and on Julia Bradbury on Twitter, and I talk about this kind of stuff a lot.
I love this, and I think you really got us all excited about walking, because I think anyone who's sitting out there thinking, oh, I can't do this because I'm just tired, I don't feel motivated, there's so much you could do. And you've shown it that it's not just about walking, it actually has a health benefit as well. So
Yeah.
if we take that on, yeah.
And I would say finally to people with mobility issues,
Mm.
do try, if you're in a wheelchair, if you're wheelchair bound, also important, ask your friends, try and get out to green spaces, get to park. If you can visit some of these more these bigger landscapes, try to do that. And for those people who can't get out at all, house plants, these little babies are so good for you. Because they're soaking up the toxins in your house, and they're also giving you something to love and to nurture. And that goes back to that original thought when we were talking straight away about how nature makes you more grateful and makes you feel happier and more positive. That is it. Houseplants can do that for you as well.
Well, Julie, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate talking to you today, and I can't wait to go on some of your trails.
Oh, I can't wait. Come, let's go and do a walk together. We'll go and do a London walk together,
We
Anne.
should do a London one together because we're both in London, so might as well do a London one.
Exactly.
We'll show everyone what a London walk is typical like. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure, and thanks to all of your viewers as well. It's been lovely to connect to all of them.
Thank you.